Welcome. This is the Virtual Film Company, and we're live on spatial.io every Wednesday at noon, where we talk about different matters related to the metaverse, technology, VR, and more. You're welcome to join us and take part in the conversation, or just take a seat and kick back and listen. We're here for an hour. Be sure to check out our YouTube channel at Virtual Film Company. We also have a Facebook page and a LinkedIn page, and would love you to join us. So today we're going to be talking about AI video. And when I first put the announcement together for this particular event, I actually put down AI animation. And then I started thinking about it and thought, is it AI video or is it AI animation? And of course, all video essentially is animation because it's a number of frames that are speeded up to fool the eye into thinking that motion is taking place. And with AI video, one of the things that's happening is that, and this is why it is a little bit difficult to do, is that the computer needs to ensure temporal consistency between frames. And so those of you, and we'll show you some AI videos coming up, there's often shimmering involved, and that's because obviously the computer is trying to figure out what the next frame is while the previous frame is still generating. And so that is slightly problematic. So I've been in this space now for, probably going on 2 years now. And I started off with Mid-Journey. And well, actually, I didn't start off with Mid-Journey. I started off with a number of other programs like Dream and Night Cafe and Stable Diffusion, and then evolved and went to Mid-Journey. Because, and I still think today that Mid-Journey is the best program out there. And Chris is going to talk about doing this on one's computer. And when I say best program out there, what I want is something that I don't have to fuss with, because as I mentioned, I have Stable Diffusion. I have a variety of video extensions plugged into Stable Diffusion. And, it's always a hassle. It's everything needs to be updated, and it's, what one gets really depends on the power of the machine. So I really fell in love with Mid-Journey. I did try Stable Diffusion, and to date, I've created 154,000 images on Mid-Journey.
I think that's
And
love right
so,
there.
feel very comfortable with image generation. About a year ago, I did start messing with image or video generation on
So
the
how many
computer
images
as
did it take
well.
you? How many images did it take you to get comfortable, John? I know like when people heard 154,000, did it take you to like 10,000 to get comfortable, or at what point does one get comfortable?
I mean, that's a good question, because I still hear people, and in fact, I mean, it goes to, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but I still hear people saying that, I just can't create an image. I see these beautiful images out there, and how do you do it? And that's part of Mid-Journey's dilemma, and, it's caused a little bit of friction between users, in that Mid-Journey wants to make a product, and Mid-Journey is the product that we're talking about to create single images. Mid-Journey wants to make it as simple as possible for a use it to create something beautiful. And so some of the power users out there are pushing back and saying, well, if a user can just type in one or two words and come up with something spectacular, and, we've spent all this time developing prompts and coming up with special prompts, etc., doesn't that, yeah. Anyway, I mean, the whole argument to me is moot. In the end, as far as I'm concerned, if one produces something and it's artistic and it looks good, it doesn't really matter how it was made. And I think eventually, I mean, we've seen that happen with Photoshop, for instance, where, we don't ask people anymore, was this done with Photoshop? There's a presumption that, anyway, Photoshop could have been used or could not have been used, but that it's part of the workflow. So anyway, to get back into video, I did experiment with Stable Diffusion's deforum extension. And, the issue with deforum, as you can see here, these are some of the values that one has to input into the forum in order to, and this is on top of a image prompt. And so, it's, down here
Looks
is
pretty
the
simple.
image prompt. No, it's unfortunately, not very simple. And, the results that one gets out of it, let's see if we can play a video here. This is the type of result that one gets from Stable Diffusion, well, at least from using this deforum extension. And this was following the mystery manner prompt because that's what I've been working on lately. So
well, there's a lot of mysteries there, so that's a good place to start because, we were trying to solve a lot of those mysteries. So I'm glad that you're investigating.
Right. And, so this whole thing came to being as a result of, in fact, just that, investigating, trying to figure out what the next steps are. As you know, I mean, you've been part of it. We've been filming on AltSpace VR and creating a series about a mystery manor. And so, that seemed to be the logical place to start experimenting with these other technologies, because I think ultimately, where one wants to get is use a combination of technologies. At least that's where I am now in terms of filmmaking, where you may shoot some scenes in VR, you may generate some character animations in iClone.
So can we see like what's going on there? Can you play this as you're talking about it in the background? Because I want to see this mystery that you're talking about. Can we multitask this?
The mystery manor. Well, this is just what we have on here is one of the generations that I did.
Oh,
that,
okay. All right.
But I'm actually going to bring up the movie that we made, so anyway, we started exploring 3D generation. Well, not 3D generation, and to get the nomenclature right here. As I mentioned when we were talking about this, when 2D imaging came up or 2D image generation came up, there was a lot of talk about what we should call it. And, that also seems to have died down. And I think we're good just calling it image generation right now. But, so basically what I did was decided to investigate, and I'll leave Chris to tell you what he did with some of the more esoteric programs on the desktop. But decided to investigate the possibility of adding to what we're doing. As I said, we're doing stuff in VR already, and so I took a look at a number of different programs and ended up creating, let me just kill the audio on this if I can. So what we have on the screen here is the end result of my exploration. So, and we'll go into the programs that I looked at in a little bit. But this is taking us through a part of this mana story. As I said, we evolved the story on VR. We actually have a 3D mana where we go into and come up with all kinds of interesting, peculiar, strange, whatever scenarios that we put together. But we need to take it a step further. And so we've been experimenting lately on VR chat and looking at coming up with
Spatial.
custom characters, spatial. Yes, exactly. But in the meanwhile, I thought, let's see what we can do with two products, Runway Gen 1 and Gen 2. Gen 2 has just come out of beta, primarily because it's too expensive, and that's one of the problems with doing this type of work is it's very GPU, CPU
Can we play it
intensive.
again while you're talking? While you're talking, can we play that again? That was
Sure,
that looked great.
sure, sure. So again, this is the concept video, and in fact, we'll speak more about this later, but we're going to be doing a second part of this video and are looking for people to collaborate if anyone is interested in collaborating. But as I was saying, I used two tools to create this video, Caber and Runways Gen 1 and Gen 2, and they're very different but similar. Similar in that they both can accept word and image prompts, and an image prompt is where instead of giving the program a word, you give it an image, or in the case of Runway, you can give it video, and that video then will be translated into the output. And it's actually
So,
interesting. Go ahead.
so from a filmmaker standpoint, with filming in VR, yeah, can we? Let's just play it again. Um, like as I watch this stuff with what we filmed in VR, I'm seeing these as amazing cutaway shots. Being able to do these interesting transitions, or you're talking about something of like the clock and how time moves here, and then going to that shot. A key entering the door, now all of a sudden we can cut to this shot instead of just somebody at the door, like wanting to open it. And I feel like this can foreshadow what is coming. And, to shoot and create this stuff, anybody watching this thing, if you were to have to set up this shot and really create there's a magic with the prompts, but it just enhances what you're doing as far as storytelling and really making it engaging for people. And I feel like when you played video games, these would be the cutaways to where like, okay, you're about to enter a door. As it loads, it's showing you these images as you're getting ready to prepare for the next sequence. So
No,
definitely
I totally
powerful.
agree. And I think that's, why a combination of these technologies, I think, is the secret sauce. And one just has to, remember that if you look at an average scene in a movie, you're talking, 1 to 3 seconds. And that doesn't seem like a very long time, but it can be a long time depending on what's going on. So, yeah, if one can create, a couple of seconds of, um, filler material or transition shots or however one wants to word them. Yeah, I think these programs are going to be worth their weight in gold. And of course, we're going to see all kinds of disruptions going on in the film industry and people complaining, particularly people that are doing animation by hand. So let's talk about these programs. As I said, you know these are running on a cloud, on a server farm with massive arrays of GPUs, because that's really what it takes. And as I said, Runway, which we'll talk about in a little bit, canceled or made their beta, their Gen 2 beta open simply because, and they publicly stated this, it was just too expensive to continue to run because of the processing power. And that's one of the issues we've run into with Midjourney as well. Midjourney all of a sudden will slow down because servers will go offline. And, as people know, Spatial went offline yesterday because Google Cloud went offline. And so we have a lot of dependencies these days. So this is not running on one's local machine. So again, this is Caber, and it is a subscription-based product. One basically pays for a subscription. Sorry, I'm trying to get onto my plan here. So yeah, you can see the pricing here. So $5 a month. Well, it doesn't look
just kidding.
expensive.
I'm just kidding. I feel like it's affordable in the sense that, I love it. There's always the tiers, which is great. And I feel like when you're going to get a subscription, it's really important to where like, you know what, do I start at $5 a month? Do I start at $10 a month? And then, you know what, depending on the use, maybe just go to $5 a month because everybody's got a bunch of subscriptions, and obviously that's the best way to support a product and how it's going to evolve and develop. So I do like that you brought up the pricing on this because as you're seeing this stuff, one of the first things people are thinking is, how much is this a month to use this thing? And I don't think that's some sticker shock right there. I think the key is,
well, the thing to be aware of here is that this is the base monthly fee, right? And with this, you get a certain number of credits, but the credits go very, very quickly. As you can see here. So, basically what one's doing is, paying the monthly fee, but then every couple of days, depending on how often you use this, you're buying credit packs.
So how many credits were used in that video that you put out there? How many credits would you say for what you showed?
I would say it was about $100 worth between this and Runway, $100 worth of credits we used.
But the thing is I bet you burned some credits, like some prompts that you put in, like it's just unusable stuff, right? To where like not everything was a gem that you pulled out of that, right? That's in there.
No, and that's one of the problems is that, these are my videos. And as you can see here, they extend on and on and on. So, out of, I don't know how many videos does it say? Yeah, so 248 I've created. Out of that 248, I definitely got better towards, where I am now, because one of the things I started figuring out was that these programs each are very individualistic, if you will, in that, one set of prompts that works with one program might not work with the other, or they have to be fine-tuned. And so the other thing is also to learn what these programs are trained with. And so, the obvious conclusion that I've reached, doing the Manna and doing some science fiction type stuff is that, for example, let's see if this will open.
We're in the Matrix. That robot cat. I was like, there's some images on there that I'm like, I actually wanted to see like what was created with that. Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, I mean, check this out. I mean, this is using one of the features that Caber has that Runway doesn't, which is pretty cool. And that's a storyboard feature where you can actually link these videos together. So if you come up with good enough prompts, so the story here would be, one day all of a sudden this portal
let me give
I want
to give an interpretation. To me, this is a great video of what the metaverse kind of is. If I think it's a great representation is you can be many things, you can go to many places, and portals kind of take you there. And there's something to be said of the simplicity, yet going on a journey with this whole thing and the limitless
Right.
possibilities.
Anyway, let me show you quickly because we are going to run out of time here, and I want Chris to show us what he has. So as I said, this has storyboards. So this is comprised of 3 different storyboards. But to create a video, you obviously click on Create Video. And then it's going to ask you, begin with an initial image, transform an existing video, or add song or audio file. And that just adds a song and audio file. Or at the bottom here, you can see
I
where it
think
says
that there's
just,
a lot of I think that there's some musicians that would love to see like, oh my gosh, you can make a music video for me. Like, boom, that's like a whole nother subject that we could have on there right there. But you kind of glossed over that. But I feel like there's a lot of people making music, and for them to create a video, it could be a challenge. So this could
well,
be really powerful.
Runway's Gen 1 product, and we'll go over there in a minute, it has a feature where it'll actually break up the music into beats, and so you can, with precision, align the cuts of each of these clips. But we'll look at that in a bit. So, this
Anybody
is
who's
Tabor.
edited music videos right now, that just blows their mind. Because, we know as editors how fun it is to go through a timeline and create that cut tool at every beat and trying to get it right on the beat to where you're setting your time. I mean, that's one of the most fun things with editing, that tedious thing of going through that timeline. So I don't know, this is kind of controversial to save that much time and be accurate.
Right, right. And it's getting better. I mean, right now we're at where Midjourney was a year ago, I think. And yeah, I mean, if you can just, so, I mean, we'll just go through this quickly. So, here is a text prompt I want to create a video of, and it gives you a few suggestions if you can't come up with something. So you can just, click on fluffy forest creatures in the style.
Okay, all right.
In the style of, and again, if you can't come up with something, it's got a bunch here. So we just clicked on that and 3D Octane render, and then you click on video settings. And
I
as you can
love that you're
see
just
here,
asking it for it to pick it, the whole thing, not me or Chris. But that's great. Go for it. This is awesome.
well, we're not actually going to run it because it takes time, and
Oh,
that's the
okay. All
reason
right.
I'm not actually even talking about prompting. We can do a whole separate thing on prompting, but the thing about both image generation somewhat, but definitely with video generation is, and we'll go to the, well, anyway, let's finish this. So,
Carry on,
as
carry
you
on.
can see here, there are, various switches, select video duration. You can select, anything, but it takes time and obviously it takes money. You can select the aspect ratio. And one of the interesting things about AI image generation, video generation in general, is that the end image will greatly depend on the aspect ratio because and it's interesting that again, aspect ratio has an influence on what that end image will look like. And so, it's not a matter of just using a different aspect ratio. It's a matter of actually changing the whole
I think
look
that the
of
thing that's
that
very
image.
interesting with that, John, what's very interesting with that statement is it's almost like when you're viewing something on a desktop or a phone or in VR or on a TV, each one of them is going to have its own kind of vibe as far as the way an image could be generated. So that's very interesting if you want to look deeper in the way this is generating things like that. Just has, you know, there's different
Right,
elements.
but it's it's problematic in that, for example, I really like some of the 9 by 16 stuff that I've generated, but 9 by 16 is an awkward format for
In
anything
that,
but
for
a cell phone,
example,
in my
16
opinion.
stuff that
And
I've generated, but 9 by
ideally,
16
16
is an
by
awkward
9
format
is
for
in
anything
that,
but,
one would
for
use
example,
for video, but it doesn't. I mean, doesn't seem to like 16 by 9 as much as it likes 4 by 3, for instance. And all of these have to be resized. So, one of the other things is that the end result, both on image generation and on video generation, the resolution isn't as good as one would like. Some of these programs enable you to up-res the resolution by, of course, paying more credits. So anyway, let's go on with this. So we have camera movement here. And if you remember, we could go back to, let's see, deforum, stable deforum, and one of these switches here has to do with camera movement as well. So really, what they've done here is they've put an interface to some really technical stuff and made it simple and taken some of the best features. And so, camera movement, you can zoom in, zoom out, rotate clockwise, etc. Which isn't that great. I haven't had good results with that. Evolve is something that all AI or image generation, video generation programs have, and that is how closely the program follows the prompt, and whether it just deviates completely or not. And so you could also put an image in here if you wanted, but right now we have this fluffy forest creatures in the style of 4D. And what I will do is I'll go to the preview frames, but even this takes time. So, this is a
so
whole, go
So,
ahead.
John, as I'm seeing that on that last thing, I'm seeing this song. You could put a song in here. So, for me, with people that are creating all this stuff, what I see is for people who make music, this is you have opportunities to maybe license some of your music in collaboration with this, because there's copyright uses with being able to use sounds and whatnot. So this is part of that, what the future is going to hold as far as being able to, um, you know, the music that you're putting in there is some music that you can actually use in your production. I think that, that's big.
Yeah, and Mubert, for example, is looking for musicians to use their sounds and reward them for providing them. So basically what we got here was 4 keyframes, and we can pick any of these keyframes. This one looks kind of cute. And as I said, we can either make a, well, we can make a storyboard. So we did a storyboard here, and now we can change the prompt, and it will add to the storyboard. So, this is Caber. This is quick. Let's jump over to Runway so we don't run out of time here. Runway is another one of these, cloud-based applications. Go ahead.
So for that fluffy forest creature, how about we put in a prompt that he's going to encounter the mystery manor? From the outside, he approaches it and reacts to the vibe of the manor. I think that could be interesting to see the other side of where this creature, as friendly as he seems like he could have a. I would like to see that reaction, only because it kind of
Okay,
goes with the
well, while
context.
that's happening, and we'll come back to that while it's churning away, let's talk about Runway here. So Runway is another one of these applications. The big difference is that Google has invested, I don't remember how many billions of dollars into Runway, which to me means that they have the money to make this into something. Runway is a much more, what should I say? It's a
Google
suite
has the
of
money.
products.
Google has the money to invest in tech. Is that what you're saying? I think that's what I'm hearing over there.
Well, actually, what I'm saying is Google has the money to pretty much take anyone else out of business that's in the same tech. So, but
Or
I
elevate
personally
people.
think,
They could elevate people as well. I mean, I feel like they've definitely provided opportunities for people who have great
yeah,
ideas.
they could. And, this product in some ways is competing with Adobe in that. So with Runway, basically there's Gen 1 and Gen 2. And so we're in Gen 1 right now where you can do similar things or the same things that you can do with Adobe's products. And, for example, remove background, in painting, color grade, and all of this is doing it by text prompt. So you would drag your video in here and then you would apply a text prompt to the video.
Is
So
I have do you think Google is asking artists for images that they can use to train, and then when they're used, they're going to give royalties to the artists' images that they're using with training all of this stuff, since they're putting all this money into this?
I doubt it. I mean, they'll probably take the 123 million images or whatever, I don't know, that I've posted to Google, and the small print probably reads that I've given it to Google to use for whatever reason they want, and use that. I mean, Google has far-reaching tentacles. So anyway, let's go back to
Hopefully
this.
somewhere in their business plan, they're going to, with the future of where things are going and people are concerned where jobs are going to be created. Hopefully Google sees the value in like, hey, we should support some artists. I think that it's a company like that to really set a new precedent to where like, even if it's just pennies or fraction of pennies, like, hey, let's give back, let's support art. We've utilized art, let's support it.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a discussion that perhaps we should have with Google, is make them accountable. But anyway, so, back to this program, Runway, is a suite of products, and basically, as I said, allows you to do, background removal, in painting, color grading, super slow motion, which is kind of cool, blur faces if you need that, depth of field, so you can add depth of field to your image. You can actually also
Hello,
do
John.
scene. Yeah.
John, I think
Yes.
you're going to need to save this program. This is like the teaser for another day because Chris has been sitting there chomping at the bit. We're already in on his part of the time here. So I don't know if you've
No,
got
no,
like
no,
a
Okay. Well, let's
no, no.
just go back to this. Okay, we'll end with this, right? So here is the what this evolved to, but this is, well, what we can do is we can click on create video, and then Chris can go on, and then by the time Chris is finished, this will have done. It's going to take a while, probably like
No,
10
I
minutes
think
or so.
first we should definitely talk about some things because it makes not much sense to jump now to a different topic because I think several things are not clarified yet. So when we go to the video that you did with the mystery manor, um, you did that with both systems. That's correct?
Correct. So, this image you see here, and I, could have added animation to it, but at this point it was just like, this is a proof of concept. I'm not going to get too deeply into this. This was done with Midjourney. This was done with Caber. This was done in Midjourney, and then animation applied in Premiere. This was done in Caber. This was done in Caber. This was done in Midjourney, Caber, and then Caber. This was done in Gen 2, I believe, and this was the library and the books. This was done in Gen 2 as well. So yeah, I mean, it
Okay.
basically, the workflow was using the same or similar prompts, trying to tune them for each program, and then just running them and seeing what would come up. I don't know how many I ran with a simple description that said, grandfather clock at the end of a passageway, and it just couldn't, just struggled with the concept of this grandfather clock. So, I kind of gave up I mean, to me, it was a really no-brainer. It's kind of ironic to use with, and so Journey did a great job of it. Neither Caber, nor Runway could figure out what an old grandfather clock, a grandfather clock, a large
Okay.
clock.
So
I think. I mean,
I
no,
love the
just
I love the atmosphere within this. It captures the manner in the sense that was some of the air quality that we were breathing in when we first got there. So, go Chris. I apologize. I just wanted to note that.
right, but again, not that people get confused, because we are throwing so much stuff at them at this time. So basically, Gen 2, that is Runway Gen 2 that you're talking about, right?
correct. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
K-bar are those systems that are made for creating moving images generated by AI. But
Correct.
now you had still images in there, and we saw that some of the still images, there was a zoom in and stuff. So those were still images, and you used classic editing software like Adobe Premiere to zoom in, zoom
Correct.
out, for example. But in
Correct.
the end, you also used Midjourney to generate still images of this grandfather clock, but you
Correct.
wanted to have it animated, because now we have to clarify, Midjourney is not doing animation. Is that correct?
Correct. They, possibly, they, what they are going to do next, we'll have to see. But, they may get into animation, but it seems like the next big thing for a number of these companies is 3D generation, AI 3D generation. So that might be where they go, because Midjourney is already buckling under the strain of people producing still images. I can't imagine what would happen if they had all of us producing video. It would probably bring down the world's computers. I mean, that's...
Oh my goodness. Yes.
So
And Chris, I'm glad that you're commenting on this, because I'm sure there's some people following along with this that are like, they get totally these programs and everything is going on. So thank you for,
yeah, and I think we have to clarify some more stuff, because again, we are doing that. I'm doing that also, and John is doing that for a long time already, and we are talking about these things in the Virtual Film Company in between all the time. And if we present something like this, I think we will have to give some more context to the viewers. So you used 3 different systems. All of these 3 systems are online systems. That means you are logging into the website that you showed us before, and all the rendering, all the process power to generate those images, all that stuff is happening on, for example, a Google Cloud system, an Azure Cloud system from Microsoft, so different providers probably. And that's why you have to pay money for this. It's heavy calculation time. And can you tell us, you have different sequences now. How much basically one of those sequences with the clock, for example, or whatever, could you determine how much money that basically is to generate some seconds of those animations? What do people have to pay for that?
Chris, that's a good question. And there is a list somewhere. I don't have the chart, rather, but it's based on the number of seconds. So it's X credits, and I can't remember, and that's why it gets confusing, because it's credits. And then if you upscale the image, they also charge you credits. So I can't remember how many. Midjourney, for example, charges, what is it, $4 an hour of GPU time. And
Okay.
again, that people think of that in terms of just minutes going into an hour, an actual hour, but it's not an actual hour of physical time, if that makes any sense at all. It's processing time that can be spread over multi-processors. And so
Right.
you
So
know
altogether, a million processes are running some seconds, and altogether it ramps up to an hour of processing time, because if you take some seconds times a million, because you have a million processors, it's much more. Right. So I mean, it's
Correct.
important to know that how long is that whole movie now that you did? That is quite
That
long
one was
for.
1 minute and 7 seconds.
Okay,
So
I
yeah,
think
and
that's a lot.
it's yeah. I mean, ultimately, it probably would have been better to make it 1 minute, so it could have been
However, I mean,
a 1 minute video. But yeah, I mean, it is a lot when you start looking at the fact that other than the still images, which obviously one can stretch to whatever length one wants, the video, other than the cost, is one's not getting the quality. And so, say of 100 videos that I generate, I would say 3 are usable. And so, that just
really,
makes it, yeah, I
3
mean,
out of 100. Okay,
yeah,
that's
but
not a
you
big.
also have to take into
3%.
well,
Well,
right
you know
now,
what? In a lot of
3%.
sales jobs, like 3% is a good close ratio. So I feel like that's good for people to know of, like, hey, this is in some jobs it is, especially with Google Analytics. Some people that they're paying on all these clicks for ads, and for some items, a 3% is a good one. It's open to
Yeah,
interpretation.
but
Yeah,
I also have to preface this by saying that a lot of that went into me experimenting, and now if I went back in the next 100 videos I generate, hopefully 30 of them are going to be good. So
Hmm. Do you
That's a
think
much
again,
more
that?
promising close ratio.
Sorry,
well, I mean,
just
again, it's getting up to speed on how these systems work. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Well, let
the
Chris go.
um,
I just wanted to comment on, the close ratio. But yes, Chris go. Chris had something for sure.
no. I'm just wondering again for the people that are not using it. When you say 3 out of 100 are good, and would you say that depends on your prompting? Like you can get better with your prompt, with the text that you write, that in the end will make the AI generate the video, that you learn how to get more precise or to describe it in a way that this AI does it better? Or is it that you are waiting for the AI to get trained with more data, and then you take basically the same prompt and then it knows how a grandfather clock, for example, is looking?
so Chris, both. Initially, it's how each of these systems recognizes or translates a prompt. So, a prompt that works in Midjourney, for example, isn't, obviously, well, you can't say it's definitely going to work in Dolly or, any of the other text to image programs. Each one of them has its own idiosyncrasies. So that, you have to learn how to talk to these programs. So talking to Runway, for example, is different than talking to Kyber. The
Right.
so that's the immediate thing. So that's a learning curve. And one of the the big advantages, and all I can say is God bless Midjourney, for having relaxed time where, they allow you to process images in the background for free. I would not have been, the service I was on prior to Midjourney, I paid, I think, $70 for 1,000 images. And, I can churn through 1,000 images in, a couple of hours. So, Midjourney has saved me thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars by allowing me to practice. And, I feel that I'm really
Okay.
good at Midjourney. I'm going to continue to practice with, both Caber and Runway. But, every time I hit that button, it feels like I'm playing a video game where I'm feeding the machine. And and this goes to your second point, is that for these to get better, they do have to be trained. And so one of the, sparks of enlightenment that's these AI companies gained from Midjourney is that if you get your users to rate what they've generated, that will help train. And so I think it's Caber, I think one of them at least has got that going, where every video that you generate, they ask you to rate it. And, it's, so yeah, that will improve. But the interesting thing, back to the prompts, is that every model that they improve also then changes how you have to address the model. So it's not only the product, but it's also the model.
Exactly.
So it's an ongoing thing. It's,
That's exactly the point, because now if you think about, we're talking about ChatGPT, we're talking about now Runway, Kyber, and there will be many more. There's Stable Diffusion that you can plug in things, little extra programs that can also generate video and stuff, right? So, but as you said now, and that's, I think, very important, each one has its specialties, and you need to know how to address them. Otherwise, you are maybe not even getting 3 out of 100 good videos out there. And right, if you use an online system like you do, with a paid tier in the background, it might get really expensive in the end. So, as you said, training is very important. Understand the model. So, what do you think for a longer video, like 30 minutes or whatever? How long would you take today to get that done in a quality that is okay for you? Where you say, well, I can show that, it's understandable, it's good, has a style. What would you think for 30 minutes? How long would you work on that?
Before he answers that, Chris, I answer that, but then also answer for a music video for a 3-minute, video as well. So if we can get an idea of the spectrum of the two.
Well, first of all, I guess I have to say that, I'd love to be able to say that, with 100% confidence, that I believe that just using, either, a combination of these AI video generation programs, that one could create something of a high enough quality that it is satisfactory. So, I think chasing quality would be one of the issues. So taking this video that I just did, this manner video that we have up on the screen here, and, again, I have to say that, part of this was a learning curve. I mentioned the clock. The key was another thing that just, man, I could show you some of the the disasters in terms of what it thinks a key is. But, this took me, probably 8 hours.
8 hours.
8 hours. And that,
Is that animated?
include,
Sorry.
well, that includes everything, Chris. That includes, 8 hours on the low side, 18 on the high side. In that range, right? But that includes doing all of the audio, cleaning up the audio, doing all of these videos and experimenting with the videos, and then putting it together, and all the generation to putting it together. And, I think that could be, the next one is going to be interesting because I generated a sequence of this. And so, it follows the manner thing that we've been doing on VR chat, but it'll be interesting because it's also 3 scenes, exactly like this. And so it'll be interesting to see how I can improve on it or how we can improve on it if, people want to collaborate on this, and how long it takes to do the next one. But, I think I'm, 50% better than I was when I first started. So
okay, yeah, but this is really important. That's why I'm going for this, and I can show my stuff next week. That's not a big deal. But I think when we are on this topic, we have to clarify all these points, right? Just showing and then not talking about it does not make much sense. We have to give that information out to the people. How much work is that, and what has to be done? And you have to spend money. And you worked with Midjourney for a long time. You did 100,000 of videos, of images, not videos in that case.
Right.
And that's a lot of experience that you gained over that time period. And this video looks great, in my opinion. It's really cool. And yesterday I already said that in our meeting, when you turn back into the animation of the Manor, when you're looking around, right? It's really this impression of the room when you walk through it. It looks a little bit like this description of physicians when they tell you, right? Yeah. When they tell you, well, there are maybe multiple worlds existing. And each world, each universe is a little bit different from the next universe. But in each universe, there's an Eric and a John and a Chris, and they are standing in this room, for example. But they're also always different little things changing. And this could be the visualization of that, right? Walking through the dimensions and taking a look at all these billions of different variations of the worlds, like, right? Because every single frame that was generated is unique somehow, right?
Right.
They are trying to keep this consistency over time. And this is probably one of the biggest problems for those AI models today, right?
Because that is that temporal consistency is a big problem, because just think of the way this has to work. You have to have an image to generate the next image, and you have to know what's in that previous image before you start generating that next image. And
absolutely.
So if you have a random first image that is still being created, how do you figure out what that random image is going to end up to look like? And so, perhaps using a seed image is, and that's, one way that you can do this is you can use, and I've experimented, in fact, and you're right. We could turn this into like probably a 3 or 4 part series talking about this.
Is that video done? As we're getting close to wrapping up, can we see if that video rendered out?
Yeah, sure. Let's see. So, so here's the...
That is Kyber, right?
That's Kyber, right. So, so what we have here is that this is part of... let's go to storyboard 2. And so what we need to do now is to actually go to my videos. And so, we didn't get... here it is, right?
Is there a number how long it rendered?
11 seconds. So this is what it turned out to be. So somewhere along here...
the Manor's in the background.
Yeah.
No, the Manor showed up in the background as a foreshadow back there. So it does show it's back there. And I like that there's another little animal that kind of greeted him in the right hand corner, and it could have been almost the baby or the child. If you see it over there, yeah, it's or a bird. Yeah, that was
So okay,
interesting. That yeah.
Well, that's one of
now
the
again,
fun. Go ahead, Chris.
sorry, just to get it straight again. So this was now rendered basically in, what did you say, 11 seconds? That's correct?
Oh, oh no! It doesn't give you the time, and that's something I've been meaning
Okay, the rendering time.
to
Okay, calculation
yeah,
time.
rendering time. I would say probably 2 minutes would be my guess. I mean, the longer the video, on the
Mhm.
long videos, it's been my experience that I've waited a few hours, and sometimes the whole system has gone down. So, that's part of the difficulty in the workflow as well, is that, you don't
John,
get,
I love how you shared your artwork today and your process. I actually wanted to comment on that final screen that you had up there, because so when he sees the manor, he's all light and fluffy at the beginning, and then you see him there and the expression on his face, he's become more serious, and that little animal, if you looked at the eyes of the little animal, it's unsure of if it's safe or not, or like what this thing is doing there. So I feel like that, as I was looking at it, it was very interesting at the very end, the expressions. But this has been a great show. You guys, I love what you're doing here. I'd love you to recap, Chris, of, where we're at and where we're going, what you're going to talk about
Right.
next week.
First, John, again, so we had this sequence now. Can you show us the prompt again, please?
so here we go. Buffy, do you see it? Buffy forest creature in the style of 3D Octane render, 8K ray tracing, Blender, hyper detailed. But again, that was their stock prompt. So if we go to create video, you'll see that it's one of their stock prompts here: fluffy forest creatures. So I guess it does random fluffy forest creatures. And then we used, I think, cinematic, or no, we used 3D rendering. Yeah. So we
Right.
had, so,
But
yeah. I mean, go ahead.
again, where's the content prompt from? Because with the manor and stuff.
Okay, so
Was
on the manor, what we did was one of the things about Caliber that is nice is that it has the ability to create these storyboards. So you can see here, this is
okay.
storyboard 1, right? So if I click, go to preview frames, and I've been meaning to time this process out as well. I mean, it's not fast, and so all of this, you're sitting here, and I think it's best to have something else that you can be doing while this is happening, and then come back to it. And as I said, I had to come back to it the next morning because stuff was just not generating. But what's going to happen here is it's going to create a quad of that single prompt, right? But it's going to give us the ability now to add a storyboard. Okay, so now what happened is it crashed. Okay, so and this will happen
Okay, but
every now and then. So
Yeah.
So it keeps maybe some information of the storyboard. If you tell them, I'm in this story of the mystery of the manor, it will remember the next time it's going to create a video that it's in the storyline.
Well, so the seed image that you get in your first storyboard is the previous image. So what you're basically doing is you're taking that image and you're adding to it. So with what we did earlier with the hedgehog, I think that was what it was we created the hedgehog with the first prompt on storyboard 1, and then we brought it up again on storyboard 2, and we added the same thing, hedgehog with a manor or behind a manor or whatever it was. So it used that and created. So you can keep, I mean, in theory, and this is where it does get exciting, is that, yeah, it looks like the whole thing has crashed. This isn't even loading.
Yeah, but
In theory,
it's that
Never
time
mind.
of we're at the end of the show right now, so it just makes sense. You've covered so much, John, and this is a complicated topic. And Chris, this was awesome. I hope that we love all the people who have viewed this and tuned in. And this is the future. We're in there experimenting with what is possible with the future in virtual filmmaking. Chris, I'd love to hear you in closing, because you had a presentation as well that we're going to talk about next week. So if you could give us a little bit of what we're.
Right. We will take a look next week to some more generative AI art and also moving images in this case, different types of how we can generate moving pictures with stable diffusion. In that case, that is software that you can run on your own PC. As we saw today, we had different examples from systems that are online based, and we will see what we can do on our home PC basically with it. And different types, like generating a complete 3D or a complete image just by the AI is one part, but we could also just generate things like 3D animations for 3D models from an AI, for example, and use that in a film, right? So there is a lot of possibilities in there, a lot of different systems, and we will, yeah, start to elaborate on that. But I loved to see what John did there, and he did a great job with this Mystery Manor 1 minute intro. And it's impressive to see what those systems today can already do.
no, thank you, Chris. Great. Well, this has been a great show, and I look forward to hearing more next week. We meet here on Spatial IO every Wednesday at noon Eastern time, and we have a YouTube channel, a Twitch channel now too. Just take a look on the screen here. We also have a Facebook page and a LinkedIn page. So we look forward to getting to know you. We always need help. And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again next Wednesday. Cheers, everyone.
And John didn't answer how many images it would
Bye-bye.
take to become a master. So usually it's 10,000 images to become a master. So with him being at 150,000 images, I would rate him at like a master wizard.
Well,
Thank you,
and
John.
I did find, so it's 125 credits is 8 seconds of Gen 1, 20 seconds of Gen 2. So
Thank you, John. You very impressive. All right, you guys. Until next week, Virtual Film Company.
great. Thanks, everyone.
See you then. Thank you.
Cheers.
Yeah, thanks guys for
Good job,
visiting.
everyone. Good job, Chris. Thank you. Thanks, Eric. Thanks, Mylan. Thanks, Jolly.
Thank you for our guests as well.